to our March Heritage Kitchener meeting. Welcome, everyone. And we have a very full agenda, so we'll try and move along as quickly as possible. Just a reminder, anyone interested in future meetings to participate, you can register online using the delegation registration form at the kitchener.ca delegation or via email delegation@kitchener.ca. So our first item that we need to do is see if there are any pecuniary interests or general nature. Anyone with a pecuniary interest? Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, I'm not sure what number it is. Hang on. Yes, item 4.7, 85 Strange Street, and 4.8, 99 Strange Street, because I live close to both of those addresses.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. And I'd like to remind everyone that even though we have the sound system all updated, please speak into the mic because it doesn't seem to pick up evenly and distribute the sound equally. So again, a reminder, speak into the mic when you are delegating or when you are asking questions for the committee. Thank you. So we're now going to go on to our delegations, and we do have, we do have two, Vanessa Hicks and Andrea Sinclair, for our 4.1 notice of intention to demolish. And just a reminder, and I don't think I have to remind people about this, but how we do our participation and our dialogue with respect to committee members and the audience. And again, I will use my chair power if there are any derogatory statements and about the committee members, staff, or anybody else. And we do not use hate speech or language that's considered harmful or defamatory. So, coming on to 4.1, notice of intention to demolish 63 Cortland Avenue East. First of all, we have Michelle Drake, Senior Heritage Planner, who will provide a 5-minute presentation regarding the matter. Michelle, please.
Through the chair, yes. So I have a presentation to go through some background information in advance of the delegation on this item. So we are in receipt now of the notice of intention to demolish 63 Cortland Avenue East. The proposal is to demolish sections of Building 1 and then the entirety of Building 2 and 3 on the site, as per the approved heritage impact assessments for the property. The reason for the notice is that it will help to facilitate the work that's required to be undertaken for a record of site condition. It will reduce the number and size of vacant buildings in the interim before redevelopment proceeds, and it will allow for the redevelopment to take place. Apologies. So to review the information that's been provided with the request, there have been 3 structural reports completed. They were all completed by Tacoma Engineers, and they were all completed by an author who has membership with the Canadian Association of Heritage Professionals. So the first structural report in May of 2024 outlined the condition for Building 1, which is the building where there is a proposal to retain sections of the building, as being in fair condition, and that it would be possible to remove sections to proceed with demolition. The second report also concluded that the building was in fair condition It also noted that the masonry was starting to show or was showing signs of distress, and also concluded that sections could be demolished without impacting the remaining sections. And then the most recent report in February of 2026 concluded that some of the sections of the building could be removed and also outlined 5 recommendations. Those recommendations were outlined in the staff report, but I'll just go through them quickly. So the first was that the roof framing should be removed by hand where it interfaces with the portions of the building that are to remain. The second was that during demolition, the floor and roof framing of the building should remain intact to provide lateral support of the load-bearing walls. The third was that the floor framing of the addition should be reviewed and again separated by hand from the remaining buildings, so not to damage that building during that demolition process. Fourth, all openings created by the demolition should be sealed and weather tight to prevent damage to the heritage assets. And then fifth, demolition should be carried out by a licensed demolition contractor with experience in the demolition of heritage buildings. The property has also had a heritage impact assessment that has come to this committee twice. The first time primarily looking at some of these demolitions, and then the more recent time primarily looking at the proposed new construction. The revised draft HIA does conclude that the subject property meets the criteria for designation under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. And it also provides 3 mitigation recommendations. One was related to the submission of a conservation plan detailing how the building will be conserved or over the short, medium, and long term, and also to include related structural systems needed to ensure the building is stabilized during demolition and construction activities. The second was the submission of a documentation and salvage report for the existing buildings using photographs and identifying materials that can be salvaged and reused. Through the chair, would you like me to continue? And then the third one being the submission of the commemoration and interpretation strategy to outline future interpretations and commemoration on the site. The city is also in receipt of a site plan application. All of these processes are working together. This application is proposing to redevelop the property with stacked townhouses while reusing and adaptively reusing a portion of that existing built heritage resource. In terms of the final heritage conditions for site plan approval in principle, the city has required that the heritage impact assessment be approved, that additional heritage studies be submitted and approved, and those include the conservation plan, the demolition, stabilization, and temporary protection plan, the hoarding and construction plan, structural assessments, vibration monitoring plan, risk management plan, document salvage and reuse plan, and a commemoration and interpretation plan. Also require what's called Heritage Works certification forms. This is to be signed by the qualified consultants to certify that the recommendations and the steps outlined in the various studies are completed when they are completed, along with the requirement for those heritage studies to be approved prior to commencement of work. There's also conditions related to requiring a cost estimate and related letter of credit that the city holds to ensure that any short and medium term conservation works are completed, and then ultimately pursuing Part 4 designation under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. So a draft conservation plan has been submitted. That is a document that is submitted to heritage planning staff for review and approval. The documentation that has been submitted addresses the demolition, stabilization, and temporary protection of Building 1, the hoarding and construction that will be adjacent to Building 1, the structural assessment related to Building 1, the vibration and monitoring approach to be used during demolition and construction on the property, the risk management plan to be followed before, during, and after the development, and then finally the commemorative and interpretation of the property piece. In order to form a recommendation in response to this notice of intention to demolish, heritage planning staff have reviewed the revised HIA, the 3 structural reports, the draft conservation plan, as well as a draft documentation and salvage plan. Staff are satisfied that sections of Building 1 can be demolished without compromising the structural integrity of the remaining building. Prior to sections of Building 1 being demolished, the applicant is required the applicant is required to have their team review the condition of the cornice and provide recommendations for its conservation. They are required to also update the draft conservation plan to address the boarding requirements that are outlined for demolition of buildings when parts or full heritage buildings remain vacant. And then in addition, in addition, through the site plan process, the applicant would then also be required to do a number of things. One relates to their structural engineer providing the condition assessment of all heritage attributes. Another being related to the proposed cladding for Building 1 and the site redevelopment. Another being related to updating the draft conservation plan to address risks associated with vacant buildings and to identify the qualifications of those who should undertake inspections. And then lastly, an update to the documentation and salvage plan to identify the minimum number of salvaged bricks and their storage, with a preference for inside storage on site being provided. So based on the heritage planning staff comments that I just went through, there are 3 options to proceed. Heritage planning staff are recommending that we proceed with option 2. This option results in council receiving the notice of intention to demolish and allowing the 60-day notice period to run its course. And as a result, the recommendation is that in accordance with Section 27 sub 9 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the notice of intention to demolish received on February 3rd, 2026 regarding a portion of Building 1 and the entirety of Building 2 and 3 as per the approved Heritage Impact Assessment at the property municipally addressed as 63 Cortland Avenue East be received as information and that the notice period run its course. And that's it for my presentation.
Thank you, Michelle. And we'll hold the questions for staff. We'll call the delegation forward, Andrea and Vanessa. Again, just a reminder, speak into the mic. Thank you. And do you have a presentation or are you here for questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Heritage Advisory Committee. It's a pleasure to be back here today to talk to you about 63 Cortland Avenue East. We were here just a month ago on February 3rd, and we had some wonderful feedback from you in support of the development that Cantero is looking to develop here. The main points are that we're looking to save and conserve the portions of the site that have significant heritage value, and the remainder would be developed with stacked townhouses And we're here in support of the staff recommendation that the report be received for information so that we can start to move forward with so the dominoes can start to fall so that we can make this happen. We have been working very closely with engineers to make sure that the portion of the building that is proposed to be conserved and can be done safely. So as you heard from Michelle, I think the main points that we want to make is that everyone right now is satisfied that the portion of the building that's proposed to be conserved can be conserved and it can be done safely. What we're working on now with staff is just the implementation and just the minor details about making sure that all of that happens. So through the site plan application, I'm working with Michelle very closely right now to make sure she has all the information she needs, to make sure the demolition happens safely, and we answer any questions, provide any finer details that we need to make sure this all happens. And we're really looking forward to this project. Thank you for your comments that we received last month. We're still working on some finer details with staff, like I said. We're submitting a conservation plan, documentation, salvage commemoration, and we're also discussing those options to designate in the future. And happy to answer any more questions that you have, or to have any final comments about commemoration or things like that. But I'm really happy to see this moving forward, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Vanessa. Are there questions for the delegation? Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for your presentation. You say that you'd be willing to consider designation in the future. Is there any reason why we're doing it now?
Certainly. So we're working with staff for options to designate. I think that we're all working through the same process to make sure that designation happens, and just to make sure that we're not duplicating processes. So, we've been to the committee, 3 times already. We're just looking to have the site plan, go through the site plan process, and make sure everyone's in agreement, and then designate to make sure that the process is, I'll say, streamlined. So what we're ending with is the same project, which is the conservation of the building and designation, and work through that with staff. But in terms of designation now, since we are conserving the important part of the building and not proposing to demolish the significant parts, and only the parts of the property that don't have heritage value are being demolished, then I don't think there's that would be an option. If we were proposing to do that, that would be an option before you, as it always is. But since that's not what we're proposing, then we're hoping to gain your support today so that we can move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Other questions? Grant, did you have one? Magda?
Thank you. I just had a question about the salvage aspect, with staff recommending that salvage bricks be stored on site. I was just wondering whether there were ideas about what that material might be used for, and whether it might be used for the as part of the restoration of the building that's being kept, or what other purposes might the salvage materials be put to? Thanks.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think the most important part and aspect of salvage in this particular case is making sure that if there are bricks or lintels or any parts of the building that are going to be demolished, that before that gets demolished, we say, wait a minute, those bricks are good. We can salvage those and use them on the part of the building that is being conserved. That makes the most sense to me. So we have that in our conservation plan. There are different levels of salvage. We didn't pick out any that was let's say a brick that had J.M. Schneider etched in it, or a date stone, or things of that nature. So what we're really looking at is there any basic building materials that can be used for the best purpose possible, which is conserving the part of the building that we're all concerned about, and that's being integrated into the conservation plan.
Thank you, Magda. Are there any other questions for Vanessa? I just have one. Um, considering the amount of demolition that's going to happen and then clearance, do you have any idea when construction might start on this property? When the project might start?
Through the chair, I think I might defer to Cantiro. I know they've been very anxious to start construction, so I'll defer to them. Q4 of this year.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Thank you very much. Now I'll go back for questions to staff. Are there any questions for staff? Yes, Grant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm also really excited to see this move forward, and I think you addressed one of my questions just there at the end in terms of the site plan process. So obviously there's an ambitious timeline for construction, so that clears that up. My question to staff is, are there any mechanisms in place to ensure that should this demolition go forward or partial demolition go forward, that if the development doesn't go forward around it, that the integrity of the building is maintained in situ, or at least the part that they're planning to retain. Thank you.
Through the chair, I think our approach, if for some reason there were going to be a delay, and particularly a significant delay, we would potentially pursue designation and then implement our property standards bylaw for vacant buildings to ensure that the building and the heritage attributes are maintained at a minimum standard until a future, use and development would proceed.
Thank you, Michelle. Grant answers your question. Any other questions for staff? Yes, Preston.
I'm just wondering if, as part of the site plan process, you anticipate having the building parceled off of the wider property, or what do staff envision for the bounds of the potential designation?
Through the chair, our approach is typically to designate the properties as they exist. So it is likely that the property as a whole would be designated. However, the designating bylaw would identify the values and the heritage attributes that are to be retained.
Thank you. Preston, you have your answer? All right. Are there any questions? Any more questions? Seeing none, I'd like to read the motion then, that in accordance with Section 27, the Ontario Heritage Act, the notice of intention to demolish received February 3rd, 2026, regarding a portion of Building 1 and the entirety of Building 2 and 3 as per the approved heritage impact assessment at the property municipally addressed as 63 Cortland Avenue East be received as information, and that the notice period run its course. So, who will move this motion? Councillor Chapman. Any questions? All right. All those in favor of the motion? Yes, it's resolved and it's approved, and so it will go to council March 23rd. Thank you. Four 4.2. It's a heritage permit application, HPA 2026 V004 98 College Street. And Victoria Grun, our heritage planner, will provide a 5-minute presentation regarding this matter. Victoria?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Development Services Department has received a heritage permit application for exterior alterations required to convert the existing building addressed as 98 College Street to 8 residential units. The building currently contains 1 residential unit. The property is located within the Civic Center Neighborhood Heritage Conservation District and is therefore designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act. The building is described as a Group B building in the district plan, meaning that it is of importance to the district. And the building on the property was constructed circa 1905 in the Georgian architectural style. So to facilitate the conversion and to comply with the Ontario Building Code, a second means of egress is required for the upper level units. Given the age of the building, the Ontario Building Code permits the use of fire escapes as a form of egress. So the owner applicant has chosen this option over a second enclosed stairway because it maintains a smaller footprint and reduces exterior impact to the building. The fire escape is proposed to be constructed from a black powder coated metal to complement the existing iron features of the building. It's proposed to be of a size and scale as close to the Ontario Building Code minimum requirements and located towards the rear of the building. So the image up on the screen here just shows where the fire escape will be located. So while the Heritage Conservation District Plan contains policies regarding the enclosure of exterior stairs in the event of building conversions, given the way that the building has been demised to accommodate the 8 units and retain some of the original features of original interior features of the building, a second stairway contained within the existing building was not feasible. It was also determined that a second enclosed exterior stair on the outside of the building would have greater impact. So while this exterior staircase is not fully compliant with the policies outlined within the Heritage Conservation District Plan, given that it's not enclosed and that the design, material, and location of the fire escape is in keeping with the recommended practices and design guidelines for building conversions, Heritage Planning staff were supportive of this alteration. The second component to this proposal is in regards to alterations to some of the window and door openings on the building. Since the building will be divided into 8 units, some alterations to these aspects of the building were proposed, and this is to accommodate proper egress as required by the building code. And the windows and doors that are proposed to be altered are not located on principal facades and are away from public view. And lastly, a roof dormer is also proposed to be constructed on the rear facade. This new roof dormer is located away from public view and is similar to the existing roof dormer that's located on the front facade of the building. So in reviewing the merits of the application, staff note the following. The proposed fire escape maintains a smaller footprint and reduces exterior impact on the building than a second enclosed stairway. The fire escape will not remove or cover up prominent features of the building, and the proposed fire escape is located towards the side and rear. The window and door removal replacements are not located on the principal facades, and so there won't be impact to character-defining features of this property. And the new roof dormer is proposed to be located at the rear of the building away from public view. And all of these alterations that are proposed will not result in any negative impacts to the integrity of the building, the streetscape, or the Heritage Conservation District as a whole. So in summary, Heritage Planning staff's recommendation is that Section 42 of the Ontario Heritage Act, that the heritage permit application before the committee this evening be approved to permit the construction of the fire escape, the alteration to the windows and doors openings, and the construction of the new rear roof at the property municipally addressed as 98 College Street, in accordance with all the information that's been included as part of the application, and subject to the following condition, that the final building permit drawings be reviewed and heritage clearance be provided prior to the issuance of a building permit. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Are there questions for staff? I'm sorry. Are there any delegations on this property or for this property? Seeing none, are there questions for staff? Yes, Laura.
Thank you. I just wondered, to what extent are the proposed changes, especially the fire escape anchoring into the brick, reversible without long-term damage to the historic fabric?
Through the chair, I'm actually going to defer this question. The architect for the application is here this evening, so I'm just going to defer to him to answer that question. Thank you.
A good portion will be supported by columns, so we will try to minimally affect the anchoring through the heritage brick. So I don't want to anchor through the brick, but there are some areas where we need to anchor through the brick to maintain the drive aisle. The urban fabric is actually really tight in this neighborhood, so we don't have much space on either side of the house to get through to the back area where there's some parking.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. You have your answer. Okay. One more question. Councillor Chapman.
Well, this could be to staff, or maybe you can respond to this. Is anybody living in the house right now?
Currently, the house is actually being used mostly for office by the owner, so there is no current residence there. So we would be increasing the residency by a lot. So we're proposing 8 units, 2 of which are 2-bedroom.
Right. So is it zoned for residential or for office? Maybe this is for staff.
I believe it's, I'm not sure what it's zoned for, but I believe the owner just uses it as a part-time home office, but there's nobody living in it currently.
Through the chair, office uses are permitted within the Heritage Conservation District, as well as residential uses.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Chapman, you have your answer. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes, Magda.
Thank you. I was just wondering about the second floor landing of the fire escape that's proposed. It seems like it's longer than it needs to be to line up with the third floor landing. Does that make sense? Because it provides access to through 2 windows of the same unit. So I was just wondering if you could speak to that.
Through you, Chair, the fire escape only goes as far as it needs to. The second floor and the third floor both have 2 units. So there's one at the front and one at the rear. And it just barely gets to the window that would allow access from the front unit. The third floor has a different layout because of it's basically in the attic space.
I mean, from what I saw on the drawings that were provided, the one on the second floor could be shorter because it provides access through 2 windows of the same unit.
I'll take a look at it. I don't want to build any more than I have to, so I will shorten it if that's the case.
I was just wondering if that was done just for aesthetic purposes because it lines up with the third floor landing. As it's currently drawn, at least in the materials we were.
There's a chance it might be a structural consideration,
okay.
But I would have to look at the drawing again.
Okay, thank you.
Magda, you're fine. Thank you. Are there any other questions for the delegation? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
right. Well, are there any questions for staff on this item? Seeing none, we'll proceed to the resolution. Pursuant to Section 42 of the Ontario Heritage Act, Heritage Permit Application HBA 2026 V-004 be approved to permit construction of a fire escape, alterations to window and door openings, construction of a new rear roof dormer at the property municipally addressed as 98 College Street, in accordance with the supplementary information submitted with this application and subject to the following condition: that the final building permit drawings be reviewed and heritage clearance be provided by heritage planning staff prior to the issuance of a building permit. Any questions on the motion? So who would like to move this? Right, Grant, you are moving. Any further questions? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. So this one will be processed under delegated authority. Thank you. And we now have notice of intention to designate, and several are in our package this month. The first one that is before us is 1254 Union Street, DSD 2026-046. Victoria Groon, Heritage Planner, will provide a 5-minute presentation regarding this matter, or perhaps it is to be deferred for another month. Victoria?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, as the committee may recall, the notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 1254 Union Street was intended to come before the committee again this evening. Heritage planning staff have had preliminary conversations with the owner's heritage consultant to discuss the statement of significance that's been prepared, as well as the list of heritage attributes that have been identified. However, staff are not in a position right now to provide a full recommendation at this time, so we are requesting that the item be deferred for one additional meeting cycle, with the intent of the notice of intention to designate coming back to the committee at the April meeting. And I am fairly confident that we will be able to have the item come forward for discussion at that time. So I'm recommending the motion that's on the screen for the committee to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. So rather than intention to designate, we have the notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 1254 Union Street be deferred for one meeting cycle to allow opportunity for consultation between heritage planning staff and the property owner. Any questions on this? Seeing none, who will move the intention to designate and leave it till next month? Laura will. Thank you. Any further questions? All those in favor? Carried. So this will come back to us in April. Our next one is 156 Benton Street, DSD 2026-084. Michelle Drake, Senior Heritage Planner, will provide a 5-minute presentation regarding this matter. Michelle?
Through the chair, thank you. So the committee should be familiar with this property. It has already come to you for review as part of our municipal heritage review process, and the initial steps that are an informal opportunity to connect with yourselves, council, and the property owners. Before you tonight is now the formal process to give notice of intention to designate for the property municipally addressed as 156 Benton Street. The property itself is a 2.5-story early 20th century brick building built in the decorative Berlin vernacular architectural style. The property is located on the west side of Benton Street between Cortland and Martin and within the Cedar Hill Schneider Creek Cultural Heritage Landscape. Our municipal review of this property concluded that it meets 3 criteria for designation relating to design, physical value, and contextual values. The design physical value relates to the building that is a representative example of the decorative Berlin vernacular architectural style. The building features brick construction, front gable roofline with shingled gabled ends, decorative brickwork, veranda with brick piers, tapered square columns and shingle handrail, pediment above veranda leading to the floor, hung windows, a front picture window with stained glass above, and woodwork. The contextual value relates to the building's contribution to the character of the Benton Street streetscape. Its location and orientation and setback are similar to the adjacent buildings along Benton Street, which helps to define the street edge and contributes to the architectural rhythm along the street. The building is similar in style and design details to the adjacent building at 158 to 160 Benton Street. The property is also in the Cedar Hill Schneider Creek Neighborhood Cultural Heritage Landscape and directly adjacent to the Victoria Park Area Heritage Conservation District. Our recommendation this evening is that pursuant to Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the clerk be directed to publish a notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 156 Benton Street as being of cultural heritage value or interest. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Michelle. Are there any questions on this property? Seeing none, I will read the motion. Pursuant to Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the clerk be directed to publish a notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 156 Benton Street as being of cultural heritage value or interest. Who will move this? Councillor Chapman will. Any further questions? All those in favor? Carried. And so it goes to Council March 23rd. We have the next notice of intention to designate 33 Ontario Street North. And Michelle Drake, Senior Heritage Planner, will provide a 5-minute presentation regarding this matter. Michelle?
Through the chair. Again, this is a property that came through our informal review process. And this evening we will potentially start the formal process, which is to initiate the notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 33 Ontario Street North. The property itself is the building on the property is a 6-story parking garage built in the brutalist architectural style. The building is located on the east side of Ontario Street between Gowdy's Lane and Duke Street within the downtown cultural heritage landscape. Our review concluded that the property meets 4 criteria for designation, including design, physical, historical, associative, and contextual values. The design physical value relates to the brutalist architectural style. The parking garage is a representative example of the brutalist architectural style, characterized by a functional utilitarian design with an open air deck and an exterior helix exit ramp. The historical associative value relates to the direct associations with the theme of urban renewal and the association with the Kitchener Parking Authority, National Garages Inc. of Detroit, and McCarter, Hackburn and Associates, now known as Walter Feedy. The parking garage was the first project in Kitchener's urban renewal plans of the late 1960s. The Kitchener Parking Authority championed the project by identifying the need for a large facility in downtown. A land use analysis report was provided by the committee. The committee chose the site at Duke and Ontario because it was accessible to major parking generators such as theaters, department stores, churches, and financial institutions. The director of planning at the time brought in National Garages Inc. of Detroit, a parking garage expert, to prepare the functional drawings, with McCarter, Hackburn, and Associates being the local engineers brought on to prepare the final designs and specifications. The contextual value relates to the parking garage's physical, functional, and visual links to adjacent properties and buildings. The parking garage is physically connected to the former Gowdy's parking store, now the museum, and continues to provide a functional link via hallway between the garage and the museum. The parking garage is visually linked to the complex of buildings at 30 to 32 Duke Street East, and together they represent mid-century modern architectural styles that broke from previous architectural representations in the downtown and were proposed as efforts to modernize through urban renewal plans of the late 1960s. The buildings are similar in age, style, and materials, and they help to define the upper end of Ontario Street North. As a result, Heritage Planning staff are recommending designation, and the recommendation is that pursuant to Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the clerk be directed to publish a notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 32 Ontario Street North as being of cultural heritage value or interest. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Michelle. Are there questions for Michelle? Seeing none, I will review the motion. Pursuant to Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the clerk be directed to publish a notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 33 Ontario Street North as being of cultural heritage value or interest. And who will move this? Peter will. Thank you. Any more questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? One opposed. It's carried. It receives approval from the committee and will go to council for approval March 23rd. All right. Now we have notice of intention to designate 5361 to 61 King Street East. And Michelle Drake, Senior Heritage Planner, will provide a 5-minute presentation regarding this matter. Michelle, please.
Through the chair, this is my last one that you've seen before through our informal heritage review process. And this evening, the proposal is to commence the formal notice of intention to designate process for the property municipally addressed as 53 to 61 King Street East. The property contains a 20th century commercial building with an Art Deco inspired front facade. The building itself is located south of King Street East between Queen and Benton in the downtown cultural heritage landscape. The principal resource that contributes to the heritage value is the facade. Our review has concluded that the property meets 4 criteria for designation, including design, physical value, historical associative value, and contextual value. The Art Deco inspired facade was constructed around 1941 on an existing 2-story commercial building, which had been constructed with brick, steel tile, and concrete block. The building to the north, which was destroyed by fire in December of 1959, was added to the building in 1966 to create a uniform Art Deco inspired facade from 53 to 61 King Street East. The property possesses historical and associative value for its direct associations with the theme of early development, economic development, early dollar stores being called five and dime stores at the time, and examples like S.H. Knox Company and the F.W. Woolworth Company, and then various bargain stores, and as well as the individual Walter P. Zeller, the founder of Zellers Limited. The contextual value relates to how the building helps to define, maintain, and support the commercial character of the surrounding area. It is physically, functionally, visually, and historically linked to its surroundings. It's located in the downtown cultural heritage landscape, and its location and proximity to other commercial buildings and its orientation, massing, and setback add to a consistent street edge along King Street East. In addition, the orientation, massing, setback, design, and materials help contribute to the continuity and character of the full King Street East streetscape and the broader downtown cultural heritage landscape. Staff's recommendation this evening is that, pursuant to Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the clerk be directed to publish the notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 53 to 61 King Street East as being of cultural heritage value or interest. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Michelle. Are there any delegations here on this? Seeing none. Are there questions about this proposal from committee to staff? Seeing none, I will then read the motion again. Pursuant to Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the clerk be directed to publish a notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 53-61 King Street East as being of cultural heritage value or interest. Who would like to move this one? Laura will. Thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor? Carried. And it will go to council March 23. We now proceed to 4.7, a notice of intention to designate 85 Strange Street. Victoria Groon, Heritage Planner, will provide a 5-minute presentation regarding this matter. Victoria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Heritage Kitchener and Council previously provided direction to formally initiate the notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 85 Strange Street. This property, more commonly referred to as St. John's Catholic Church, is located on Strange Street between Dominion Street and Waverley Road and contains two buildings which are now connected, the 1937 Main Church building and the 1948 Rectory building. The property was evaluated and determined that it meets 4 out of the 9 criteria for designation, and it has design, physical, historic, associative, and contextual value. The design physical value of the church building is demonstrated through the neo-Gothic architectural style. The church building features a rectangular plan of brick construction, red brick construction, and Gothic arched windows and doors. The rectory, which is beside the church building, kind of set back there on the image on the screen, was constructed in 1948 and features a symmetrical front facade, brick construction, and a classical entrance. The historic associative value of the church relates to its original and continued use as a church, and it being one of the first churches in the city. It is also associated with the neighboring property, which contains St. John's Catholic School. And the church once used the school's basement for Sunday Mass until the construction of the church was complete in 1938. And finally, the contextual value of the church and rectory is demonstrated through its original location and that it continues to serve the predominantly low-rise established neighborhood of which it is a part. And as noted previously, the property also has ties with the neighboring school property. So based on this information, staff is recommending that pursuant to Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, that the clerk be directed to publish the notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 85 Strange Street as being of cultural heritage value or interest. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Are there questions for staff? Seeing none, I will once again read the resolution. Pursuant to Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the clerk be directed to publish a notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 85 Strange Street as being of cultural heritage value or interest. Who will move it? Natalie will. Thank you, Natalie. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Right, and Councillor Chapman has stated. Thank you. It's carried. Our next one is 99 Strange Street, intention to designate. And Victoria, would you present, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this property was also before Heritage Kitchener and Council, and we've received direction to formally initiate the notice of intention to designate. This is the neighboring property to the one that was just previously discussed. So the property municipally addressed as 99 Strange Street, is more commonly referred to as St. John's Catholic School, is located on Strange Street between Dominion Street and Waverley Road, and contains a 20th century building constructed in the collegiate Tudor architectural style. This property was evaluated and determined to meet 4 out of the 9 criteria for designation, and it has design, physical, historic, associative, and contextual value. So the design physical value is demonstrated through its collegiate Tudor architectural style. Originally constructed in 1929, with later additions towards the rear. The building was planned in an H shape, though this design was not fully realized until the 2 additions in 1946 and 1954 were constructed. The school is 2 stories in height with brick exterior and cast concrete decorative details, and the original rear portion of the building has been concealed with an addition that was constructed in 2011. The historic associative value of the school building relates to its original and continued use as a school. It was constructed in response to the influx of new families and increased birth rates following World War I. And the school is associated with the neighboring St. John's Church and has direct association with the theme of educational development in Kitchener. And the contextual value resides in its original location and continued use as a school. The school continues to support the low-rise established neighborhood of which it is a part, and it is tied to the neighboring St. John's Church, and both buildings were constructed around the same time and have served this community since their construction. And through discussions with the school board, the heritage attributes have been clarified to pertain to the original 1929 portion of the building, given that there have been later additions towards the rear of the building, which are not reflective of the original building and the attributes, or they were removed as a result of the expansion of the building in 2011. And so based on the evaluation of this property, Heritage Planning staff are recommending the following: that pursuant to Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the clerk be directed to publish a notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 99 Strange Street as being of cultural heritage value or interest. And that concludes my presentation on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Are there questions on this item? Yes, Grant.
Thank you, Chair. Quick question for staff. In your experience, have the school boards, either public or the Catholic School Board, expressed concerns with heritage designations, either on this property or just schools more generally? I know they certainly have stated good repair backlog a mile long, and so I'm wondering sort of how they respond to some of these designations or this one in particular.
I think through the chair, I think there's been a general level of support. We have worked with the school boards to pare down the heritage attributes to ensure that what's reflective in the designating bylaw is something that both the school board and city can work with. So I can say from my experience, it's been fairly collaborative.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just to follow up, in terms of the programs that we offer in terms of grants and whatnot for heritage properties and restorations, would the school boards be eligible for those programs, or is it only sort of individual private property owners?
Through the chair, the school boards would be eligible for funding through our grant program.
Grant, you have your answer. Yes. Thank you. Are there any other questions? And I do think from the report, it sounded like you had worked through the difficulties prior to the designation statement and so on. Great. All right, I will read the motion again. Pursuant to Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the clerk be directed to publish a notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 99 Strange Street as being of cultural heritage value or interest. And who will move this one? Laura will. Thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor? Carried, and Councillor Chapman abstained. All right. Now we have the municipal register review, March 26th update, and Michelle Drake, Senior Heritage Planner, will provide a 5-minute presentation regarding the matter. Right. And I see that we have 3 properties. And I will ask after Michelle makes the presentation if you wish to have these voted on separately or if we can do it as a group. So, Michelle?
Through the chair, I'm actually going to present the first 2 properties, and then Michelle will take the third. So Heritage Planning staff are bringing forward 3 properties this evening to recommend pursuing designation under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. The first property is municipally addressed as 265 Weaver Street East, and based on staff's evaluation, this property meets 5 out of 9 criteria. So the building meets design physical criteria as it is a representative example of the structuralist style of architecture marked by its functional and unadorned design. And it features a flat roof, H-plan, and is constructed in a red rug brick and has a symmetrical facade. The building meets historic associative criteria as the construction of this building is associated with Kitchener's post-war housing boom and the early history of cooperative housing in the city. And this is the first cooperative multiple dwelling in the city. And it still operates as a cooperative today. The building is also associated with Michael Kraus, a local entrepreneur, builder, and church leader who was the original owner and builder. And the building or the property has contextual value as it continues to maintain the low-rise character of the area. The property is physically and functionally linked to its surroundings, given it's still in its original location and maintains its original use. It's also historically linked with the neighboring H-plan apartment buildings at 105 to 117 Onward Avenue and 141 to 149 Borden Avenue North, as the owners and or builders of these apartments were all affiliated with the New Apostolic Church. And not to put Magda on the spot, but Magda did help with the research for this, so I did just want to publicly thank her for her efforts on this one. And that concludes my presentation on this property.
Thank you, Victoria. Are there questions regarding 265 Weaver Street East? Let us proceed then. 141, 149 Borden Avenue North. Victoria?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the second property before the committee this evening contains 2 buildings and is municipally addressed as 141 to 149 Borden Avenue North. The property meets 5 out of the 9 criteria for designation. The buildings meet design physical criteria as they are a representative example of the structuralist style of architecture, marked by their functional and unadorned design. They feature a flat roof, H-plan, and are constructed in a multicolored rug brick and have a symmetrical facade. The buildings meet historic associative criteria as the construction of these buildings are associated with Kitchener's post-war housing boom. And the building is also associated with Martin Kukler, who was the original owner and builder, and he was a rector of the New Apostolic Church and was strongly associated with this denomination in the city. And the property has contextual value as it continues to maintain the low-rise character of the area. The property is physically and functionally linked to its surroundings, given the buildings are still in their original location and maintain their original use. The property is also historically linked with the neighboring H-plan apartment buildings at 105 to 117 Onward Avenue and 265 Weaver Street East, as the owners and/or builders of these apartments were all affiliated with the New Apostolic Church and were constructed around the same time. And again, I want to thank Magda for her research efforts on this property as well. And that concludes my presentation on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. And are there any questions on this one? Seeing none, we'll proceed then to 55 King Street West. Michelle, it's yours.
Through the chair. So 55 King Street West is a 20th century 12-story building built in the contemporary international style. The building is located on the south side of King Street West between Ontario Street and Queen Street in the downtown cultural heritage landscape. Our review has determined that the property meets 5 of 9 criteria for designation. So in terms of the design and physical value, the commercial building provides a strong example of the contemporary international architectural style, characterized by a sleek material palette, minimalist detailing, and urban scale. The building balances corporate functionality with architectural refinement while remaining visually distinct from the historic fabric and contributing to modernization in the downtown. Overall, the building displays 4 key architectural elements. The first is the glass curtain wall construction system, which offers an elegant, uninterrupted verticality, while the use of tinted blue glazing adds a corporate contemporary tone. The second is a structural expression, which is overt with the rhythmic precast framing, hinting at the building's grid-based structure and thereby echoing the functionality of modernism. The third is minimal ornamentation, which is true to the international style, where decoration is absent. Instead, interest is created through material contrast, such as glass versus stone, precise alignment of elements, and the quality of finishes. The last is the roof line, which is flat and understated and capped with a parapet and a mechanical penthouse that is fully integrated within the building envelope, avoiding visual clutter. It's also interesting to note that the building that exists today represents only half of the original architectural vision. A second building had been planned to be built between Halls Lane and Charles Street with an 11-story glass atrium above Halls Lane connecting the 2 stories. In terms of the historical associative value, this relates to the direct association with the theme of banking and related organizations, including the Waterloo County Loan and Savings Company, the Waterloo Trust and Savings Company, Canada Trust, and ultimately the TD Canada Trust business. And the building is often referred to as TD Canada Trust Building. And then lastly, in terms of other firms that were connected to the building, the design and construction was done by a general contractor, the Jackson Lewis Company, which was one of Canada's first general contractors. And they are now connected to the business known as Aecon. The architect in this example was Webb Zafara Mikis Houston Partnership, which was founded in 1961 by 4 associates of the iconic architect Peter Dickinson. The structural engineer was Quinn Dressel Associates. The mechanical engineer was the Mitchell Partnership Limited, and the electrical engineer was Mulvey and Benini International Inc. What I'll circle back and mention after mentioning all those individuals who contributed to the building is that the building was also identified for sort of technological advancements at the time in energy efficiency. And it did actually win a national award for the type and size of building for energy efficiency, I think back in 1992. And then lastly, in terms of the contextual value, the property helps to maintain, define, maintain, and support the character of the area. It uses a 3-story podium base with multiple bays constructed of granite and glass that generally align with the height of historic buildings on King Street and Ontario Street. The building is physically and historically linked to its surroundings, and again, the podium helps doing this by fitting in to both streetscapes on King and Ontario, and it's also historically linked to the site of the original headquarters of the Waterloo Trust and Savings Companies, which had existed on the site in the early 1900s, then was demolished and relocated to another location on King Street West, and then came back to this location on 55 King Street West. And that concludes my presentation on 55 King Street West.
Thank you, Michelle. Are there questions for Michelle on this item? Yes, Magda.
Thank you. I was just wondering in terms of design physical value, if there's, I'm just seeing like this building fitting into postmodernism and some of like these quite abstract but sort of vaguely historical references, like the clock tower, the segmental arch at the corner entrance, and the domes, which I can see this building out of my my office window at home, and it's like if you step back a little bit, the domes are quite prominent, as well as a material like granite, which is kind of maybe considered a more traditional material. So I was just wondering if that was considered at all. Thanks.
Through the chair, I should have mentioned, so I'll mention this briefly, that Ali, one of our members, had also helped prepare for this property, similar to how Magda had helped prepare for the previous 2 properties. So I know he's not here this evening, but also wanted to make that note so the committee's aware. I mean, definitely, I acknowledge references, like you mentioned, to the towers, domes, and arches, and that heavy granite material being more, those all being more like historic references. I can definitely, review and tweak the description. If I'm hearing you correctly, are you thinking it doesn't fit solely in that contemporary style, or did you just want to know like how those fit into that style?
I mean, I haven't done my own thorough analysis. It's just kind of like, that's what I think of. I think of, the early 90s and these elements, and it's like sort of like late postmodernism to me. So, I don't know, just as, I guess, a suggestion to maybe look at that a little bit. Particularly, I quickly looked through Ricketts' book on Canadian architectural styles, and there were kind of a lot of, it seemed to fit right into that section, that last section on postmodernism. So yeah, just something to look into.
Through the chair, no, we appreciate that feedback.
Thank you, Magda. are there any other comments or questions for staff? Councillor Chapman, you had one? No, thank you. Are there anyone? All right. Is there anyone that wishes to have the three properties separated? All right, then we will proceed with them as a group. Pursuant to Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the cultural heritage value or interest be recognized and designation be pursued for the following properties: 265 Weber Street East, 141 to 149 Borden Avenue North, and 55 King Street West. Any questions? Who will move it? Preston will. All right, all those in favor? Carried, and so this will go to council for approval March 23rd, as the other ones have. So, and that brings us to the information items, the permit application tracking sheet. Any questions on that? Seeing none, who would like to move adjournment for the meeting? Natalie, thank you very much. So see you in April.